Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Friday 15. So what is a Friday 15, you ask? Well, every Friday at 12 p.m. Central Time, we go ahead, we take 15 to 20 minutes to answer your questions about the travel industry that you've submitted on our website. If you have questions that you would like to submit, or if you want to go back and watch past episodes, please go to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15. We bring on many special guests, as you all know, so it's a really fun way for us to end the week. It's also my birthday week, so another great week. We get to end it off right. So many of you know our next co-host. Sheila has been here many times, so I am so excited to welcome back Sheila from Travel Industry Solutions. Welcome.
Thank you. It's always fun to be here. You know, I love chatting with you guys. You're the best.
The feeling is very, very mutual. So, and we've got some great questions. Before we get started, just as a reminder, next week we do not have a Friday 15, and that is because we have Hardwired, which is our travel agency tech week. So we will link the registration. It is absolutely complimentary for you all to join. Every day we've got incredible speakers, incredible topics, wonderful panels. And on Friday, the 17th, it is a full-blown demo day. So it is 14 demos back to back. Great way to see a bunch of different types of solutions that could work for your business. But with all that said, shall we jump into question number one?
Let's do it.
Amazing. Okay. So question number one is, I realize that every host agency has a different network of suppliers. Even though I understand that I'm not supposed to go out of my network if I'm working with that host, if I'm able to keep my own name and advertise my own company, am I allowed to book with different networks of suppliers, or am I not allowed to book outside of preferreds with my host?
Okay, so I don't know who told you you're not supposed to do that.
Was gonna say.
Sorry, but you are an independent business. Now, I do know that there are some host agencies who say, if you book outside of our preferred supplier list, we're not going to support you in this way, or this way. But if any host agency is restricting you from working with a supplier, I would strongly encourage you to go to that host agency first and talk to them, find out the whys. It may be a blacklisted supplier first and foremost, but if it's not, what is their rationale behind it? And if it means that much to you, maybe you need to go explore other host agencies. So, you know, it's not that simple of a question, right? The first thing you go is, who told you you're not supposed to?
Yep.
You've really got to dig a little bit deeper here. Why don't they want you to do that? Have you brought that other supplier to your host agency? You know, ask questions, deeper questions around that.
Absolutely. That was my biggest thing, was I think for Anonymous, who sent us the question, is that ask questions. I don't know of a host agency that says you cannot book outside of our network. I know some that prefer that you don't book outside of their preferred supplier network. And a lot of times it's because these preferred suppliers, and there's typically thousands of them between hotels, tour operators, cruise, and so on, that have been vetted, right? So they have been vetted. They have been used by other independent contractors that are part of the host. You also typically do have higher commission levels, other inclusions, things to consider. However, to me, it's always the client first. So what is the best fit for your client at the end of the day? And if it's a supplier that isn't preferred, then that's who I would be working with. But also, where do you think your host learns about the preferred suppliers that they want to be working with? A lot of times it's referrals from their own ICs, right? So if there's a supplier you enjoy working with that's not part of the preferred network, talk to your host about it. I'm actually going to link an article that we have about preferred suppliers. So for anyone listening who doesn't understand what a preferred supplier is or how that process works, I will link that article for you. But yes, you can absolutely work outside their system. Like you said, Sheila, you're an independent contractor.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's just a matter of having a conversation with them. But there are lots of reasons why host agencies have preferred supplier lists, just as Shayna said. So go to your host, ask those questions, and your supplier may be added to that list if your host agency finds value and thinks that they will be good in serving their entire network.
yeah, absolutely. But don't be afraid if there's a supplier that you feel like makes sense for your client.
Mhm.
Absolutely, do your due diligence as well, right? The preferred supplier network, your host has done the due diligence for you, has done the vetting for you. Typically, contracts are on an annual basis, so they're re-talking to the suppliers every year. Having been the supplier on the other side of it myself, so you definitely want to ensure that you can trust that supplier, and then take it from there. So yeah. All right. Second question. Um, love how this question starts. I feel a little overwhelmed with so much information and access that's out there. My brain is freezing. I don't know where to start. I'm doing everything and I'm freaking out. Um, do you have a step-by-step list of what you first do as a travel advisor? So you build a website, contracts, forums, service guides, social media, trainings. Do I prioritize certain things over others? I have a business and social media account set up, but I feel like I'm a mess behind it all.
Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to breathe.
Yeah.
You're going to take some deep breaths every day. This is an incredibly overwhelming industry. And if you do not tackle things in bite sized chunks, you will stop before you ever get started. Okay, so breathe, give
Yes.
yourself grace. That is the very, very first thing you need to do. And know that you're not alone in feeling this way. We've all felt that way at one point in time. But if you want a list of things that you should be paying attention to inside of your business, the first thing is you really need to set up the foundation of your business. Because if your foundation is not set up, and what do I mean by that? Are you a sole proprietor? Are you going to be an LLC? Do you have your FEIN number? Are you going to be hosted? Are you going to go independent? Those are some critical things that you could be impactful to you. Also, you should get your legal contracts in place. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have one client or 100 clients. The court does not care how big or small you are. You need to be prepared to start booking travel. So get your legal house in order. That would be part of your business foundation. One of the things that you can do early on is also decide how you're going to manage your business finances, how you're going to track your income, your expenses, because if you do that right from the start, it will save you a lot of time in the end. Are you going to use QuickBooks? Are you going to use some sort of a free online, accounting software? Are you going to use an Excel spreadsheet? How are you going to manage your business finances? You don't want to have to go back a year and have to enter all that data in. That really is just a huge time suck. Insurance, right? You need to get insurance right out of the gate. So errors and omissions insurance, you should highly consider cyber insurance. With cyber crimes on the rise, to me, it's a no-brainer. The next thing, what tools are you going to use to manage your bookings? I don't think that this is a critical first step, but I do believe that thinking about the systems and the tools that you're going to use to manage your bookings early on will also save you time in the long run. So while you may only have 2 or 3 or 5 bookings right now, and you can certainly manage them inside of an Excel spreadsheet, literally overnight, and I see this happen all the time with travel advisors, they go, holy crap, my business just exploded. Now I've got to spend all this time migrating this data into some sort of a software system to manage my bookings. And oh, by the way, when you are using solutions like, for instance, Travify, you can automate a lot of your communication with your customers. Okay. And that's going to save you time. Training is ongoing. I mean, that never stops. That is something that you will continue to invest in over time, whether it's training on different booking platforms, training on products, training on destinations, training on business leadership or marketing. That is something that will never stop. But to the point of the first question about the agent who asked about the host agency commission, I would go to your host agency to do trainings on different platforms. A lot of times their preferred suppliers will provide training inside of the libraries on how to use the different platforms. Pick 2 or 3, depending on what your niche is or what your specialty is. Pick 2 or 3 to learn those well. Would you agree, Shayna?
I completely agree. Yeah. There's so much out there. Try not to, you get kind of almost starstruck, I find, when you see all the pretty things that are out there in terms of, I'll determine, I would list out the ones that are interesting or exciting. And then I would say, okay, like here are my 2 or 3 that I'm going to start with and that are essential for me to run my business day to day. And then see what else as you, it's like when you move into a new place, right? Like, you move into a new home, live in it first, right? See what it's like before you start deciding, oh, I'm going to demolish this or I'm going to change this, because you don't know how you're going to feel. So there's a few things I think you need. You kind of touched on, I was going to say, well, we're going to link an article like that has our top 10, starting a travel agency, and you pretty much touched on every single point that we made.
Well, in choosing learning how to use booking platforms, I would suggest that you go to your host and you say, who is preferred? Yes. What are the top 3 booking platforms that aggregate? So that aggregate hotels, that aggregate tours, that aggregate air, and start with that. I know if you're part of different consortia, they have cruise aggregation software as well. So you can learn how to use that rather than having to learn every single cruise line software, which can be overwhelming because they're all very different. So pick 2 or 3 that'll give you broad coverage in land, air, and cruise, as well as tours. And then I think the marketing, like, to me, I know everybody jumps to like getting their website done and, they're like, oh, I got to do all this first. I have mixed feelings about that. I don't look, these travel companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars on SEO. And if you think that someone in your neighborhood is going to find you right out of the gate as a brand new person and find your website, it's highly unlikely. I think that you can start with templated websites. There's different companies out there that'll get you up and running pretty quickly. Don't overthink it. If you want to build your own website, it can be a single page or a 2-page website. It does not have to be super detailed. If you just want brand presence, then make it basic. Here's who I am. Here's what we do. Here's how to reach me. Here's my calendar link. Schedule a free consult.
See, I love that. I love the kind of that keep it simple, stupid, that KISS mentality, especially at the beginning. I know for me, something that I do, and I don't know if this will help the person, again, anonymous, who asked the question. I have a lot of ideas that kind of jump to mind. And, when I started with Host Agency Reviews about 7-8 months ago, I was like, oh, like this could be fun, or we could do this. And I literally have, in one of the systems we use to or the system that we use to manage projects, is I have a backlog list, right? So when things come to mind or when my team thinks of something that we should do, I list it in my backlog list. So it all sits there. So we don't forget that these are things that we've looked at doing. Once a month, I go into my backlog list based on what we're working on a day-to-day basis and running the business and everything. I look at it and say, okay, these are the 2 priorities that are going to come up next, and move them into, and I have like a whole system of how I move them. There's so many different things you can be doing. And so I don't want to lose those ideas, but they're not all priorities. So this is how I kind of, everything goes backlog. And then every month I take a look to see if there's maybe 1 or 2 smaller projects, maybe 1 larger project that I can pull forward. And then that becomes the priority along with running our business. So sometimes that does help. It's something I do, might work for you, might not work for you, but
we do that too inside of TIS. We use a tool for our engineering team on what are the backlog items, what are the requests, things of that nature, and then we move them into sprints as allowed. So keep that list. You can even keep it on a written piece of paper if you want, but if you want to keep it electronically, there's tons of free tools out there. But keep your marketing simple, your website presence, it's simple. It's just to give you what I call like that street cred. But if you think that people are going to be just coming to you in droves because they're going to be finding your website all of a sudden, that is a complete and total misnomer. And I just think that your money is better spent elsewhere when you are just starting out.
I agree. I think your money and time are better spent elsewhere. And then there's some of these tools that have, I know Travefy does landing pages and websites that it's all kind of built in. So definitely take a look at those different tools and see which tools can help support as much as needed to start your business. And then you can start to progress and do other things down the line. You also see what's necessary and what's not. Right?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
The reason why I like a lot of people starting with Travefy, and I'm not trying to be partial to any one particular technology, because I think that there's a lot of really great tools out there.
Yes.
But for people just starting out, it really does give you the professionalism from the itineraries, the automation, the forms, the connectivity to your own Stripe account, your website template. I think it's a really great value for your money. And then as you start to grow and you think that you need more tools, then you could move and add more tools to your suite, because I really don't think that there is one system out there that does everything that we need. And you need to accept that right out of the gate. Okay. You've got to accept it.
I know. It was when I was working in travel tech, it was something I talked about all the time. They're like, oh, I just want one tool that does everything. And I said, that doesn't exist. It doesn't.
And it's never.
Okay. And that's okay that it doesn't, right? No one business is like the next. It's okay. If your systems can speak to one another, that's a beautiful thing. If you want to stack your tech, and we have a whole slew, we have a feature session next week and a panel about it as well. But if you want to stack your tech, that's wonderful. So when something happens in one system, it goes and it happens, something else happens in another. I know I just built out a whole stack yesterday, actually, for something that we're working on. But no one system is going to do it all. I think I've shouted this from the rooftops, and that's okay that it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
You have to accept it and understand. Also, systems that do a few things and do it really well, that's who you want to work with, right? Because they're focused, right? Versus trying to be everything to everyone, because every business is different. So and
Shayna and I also know the behind the scenes piece of it that a lot of advisors don't understand. And that is that you literally would have to have 200 engineers, and each one with a specialization in a particular area, to not only maintain that component of the tech stack, but to be 20 years forward thinking and always being ahead of the curve and developing, and then bringing those engineers so that everything talks together. And this is a lot of the reasons why you have vertical technology products that talk to one another, because everybody specializes in something unique and different. So, and then I would say the final piece would be around your marketing, right? You cannot rely on one single thing. Do not think that if you start posting on social media that the floodgates are going to open. You need to, you could pick one or two or channels to start with, but make sure that they kind of balance each other out. That's my viewpoint. I built my agency on relationships. So I was out there in my community networking, and I relied less on digital marketing. And, you can start really with the people you know more people than you really think like your college roommate's uncle owns a company that does incentive trips, or, your neighbor down the street, you didn't know, travels 6 times a year, and they always travel with 4 other couples. So there's more people in your network than you actually think about. So I would say with your marketing, kind of make it a balanced approach, so that you are not relying on one avenue only. And I hope that helps.
I agree. I always use the word diversify, so that if something isn't quite working, something else likely is. And I've definitely seen that at larger businesses play a pivotal role during times like COVID. All right, final question.
Sure.
All right, I love this question. We've been asked this a few times. Can your agency, so your host, change your commission level without notifying you or sending you some type of contract to sign? Shouldn't there be some type of agreement or acknowledgement from the host before that happens? What if the host changes your monthly fee? So any changes in commissions with suppliers or fees, shouldn't there be a new contract or an option to leave and take your business?
Okay, so first of all, I want to know, what does your contract say that you signed with your host agency? Does it say that they can change your monthly fees with 30 days notification? Does it say that they can change your commission levels at will? What does your contract say? What your contract says is what is dictated. Now, if your contract does not spell that out, then certainly they cannot just unilaterally change everything on you. But I guarantee that most of these large agencies have some sort of provision in their agreements that outline how commission levels will be changed and how monthly fees will be changed. So I suggest you first go and you read the contract that you have with your host agency, so you can see what is within their rights and not.
Yeah, that's, to be honest, it's the first piece of advice I think I hear from everybody. And it's the first piece of advice we give you at HAR when you're looking and you're planning to join a host, is read through your contract with a fine tooth comb. Ask questions, be inquisitive. I just said the same thing, but in 2 different ways. But, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to get clarification. Don't be afraid to consult a lawyer, right? You should
you should. Yes. And you should not, if the contract says X, Y, and Z, let's say your contract says, or you've made a verbal agreement that you're going to get a 90-10 split. But your contract says, oh, by the way, we're going to do it on a rolling 12-month basis. And our look back, if you don't meet a certain sales volume, we're going to drop you to 80%. And then you go, oh, I noticed this in my contract. And the owner or whomever says, oh, don't worry about it. We're going to lock you in at 90. Just sign the contract. No, no, no. You have that contract amended, or you go find another host agency. Absolutely. And don't have them put it in an email in writing. You have them change the contract.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Everything is in that contract. Review it, get them to always. Yes. Yes to everything that you said. I think it's incredibly important. You absolutely, this is your business. You have to look out for yourself and your business, and read these contracts thoroughly and ensure that everything that was discussed is in there. If it's not, you go back, you talk to your host, but make sure that you are comfortable with every single word in there before you go and sign.
And if you have questions now because you are in this situation, I recommend that you go meet with a lawyer and have them review that contract if you do not understand the language inside of that contract.
Yeah, I'll actually post a link. We have an article that lists a whole group of different travel lawyers that are based in the US, if that's where you are, that you can reach out to directly. So we'll link that article if you do need it, or if anyone else listening would like to speak to a travel lawyer. The most important, sorry, go on.
No, I just said yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am now going to post the 2 most important links in the comments, which is a direct link to Travel Industry Solutions directory on HAR's website, along with a direct link to Travel Industry Solutions. So you can go check them out. You can reach out to the team, ask any questions that you like, especially based on the last question. Really, honestly, get in touch, talk to TIS. You will also see them through Hardwired next week. So do please come and join us. So we have Hardwired next week. Following that, on October 24th, we will have Wanderlust Campus as our guest for the Friday 15. Following that, we will have Teak joining us on October 31st to round out the month. If you have any other questions that you would like to submit, please go to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15. And really, don't forget to check out Hardwired. It's going to be a great event. It's going to be 4 days of tech and madness, all focused on the travel advisor. So please come and join us. Sheila, thank you as always. This is always such a pleasure. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to go enjoy a long weekend. It is Thanksgiving in Canada. And everyone have a wonderful time. We'll see you next week at Hardwired.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.